Welcome to the Coding Dojo. I am your sensei. You may call me Andrew. Today, we are finally going to tackle JSON. Now, if your name happens to be Json, and you're working with Json, that's called a Json Ception, which is incredibly cool. So shout out to all my friends out there named Jason. Let's look at some examples. We have in this folder 5 examples. And we're going to start simple and we're going to get complicated. The whole goal here is to be able to understand JSON and not get intimidated by large blocks of JSON that looks very confusing, but to be able to understand that it all boils down to these nice simple cases and you can master JSON. So let's look at the first one. Examples. Very simple, right? That's JSON. That's about as simple as you can get with JSON. That's a little message that says hi. And you notice we got those little brackets around it. You might have seen this format before. Very common. Let's look at the second example. A little more complicated. Now we're talking about a list of things. Okay, same, those little brackets started. And this time, instead of message, we have items. Thing 1, thing 2, thing 3. Let's look at the third example. Oh, here we go. Now this one says list with objects. So this time it says items, but rather than thing 1, thing 2, thing 3, we got a message in there, a hi and a there. All right, getting there. Objects and objects. Oh, interesting. So this one will be, a slight challenge. We'll get to that, don't worry. But the end goal here is the final one, which is real JSON from YouTube. This is what the whole goal is here, is to make an API request and get back real world JSON and be able to handle it and not get intimidated by it. Because look at this thing. Oh my God. That's a lot of JSON, right? So this is a real world JSON example. And let me pipe this to JQ to make it look nice and pretty. Isn't that better when you have the color? Okay. So we have kind, e-tag, next page token. We forget all this stuff. Let's look at items. Very similar to the examples we were looking at. It's just items. It's a list of, it's an array. It's in a list of things. And then you have to come down here and things like snippet and look at the title. And this is, a list of videos is what this is. And you see that there are results per page here, 2. So items, we expect to have 2. So here's the first one. When do we get to the second one? Oh, right here, this comma. Telling them we're on the second one. Okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves. That's the end goal. It's like how not to get intimidated by this. And when I told you, write a program that loops through all these items and prints out just the title of the video, you might be saying like, I don't know how to do that. But you will by the end of this video. Okay, so let's look at our main program. And we have it nice set up here where we're saying, hey, we're going to parse example 1, parse example 2. And because this is a cooking show, I've already done some of this work. So if I type the magic, forward 1, I am now a little bit further along in the program. Well, yeah, look at that. So look at this, what we've written in here. Example 1, read file, examples 1, say hi JSON, print JSON string. So what are we doing here? We're just saying, okay, take that file from the hard drive, put it into this variable called JSON string, and print it out. All right, let's try that. Go build JSON, example 1. Hey, look at that. So that's doing the exact same thing as just printing out this file, which we did before with examples like that. Okay. What comes next? Forward 1. Aha, so we've changed main.go here. And rather than putting all our logic in there, we're going to put it in this thing called example 1, which is in a new file called example 1. And it's the exact same thing. But now we just have a nice file to work in. It's clean. Aha, what have we done here? Well, this is the backbone of how we're going to handle these JSON messages. And for that very simple one, that hi JSON one, this might seem like overkill because it's just a small little message. But remember, we want to learn how to do this. So when we get to the big one, we are not intimidated. Okay, so we've said that there is a new thing here, a new type called message. And it's a structure, abbreviated struct. And inside there is a message, and it's a string. String just means a sequence of letters and numbers. You usually see it surrounded by quotes. Okay, here's that same file we had before, which is, the same logic we had before is read this file, print it out. But this is new here. Now I'm saying, okay, let me use this new struct I just made called message. And I'm creating a brand new empty one here. And I'm going to say the message is m.message, which will print out the message. And then it's going to say the message length is len. That's a special word, meaning length. Saying, hey, how big is this message? And the word hi should be 2, because it's hi, 2 letters, right? Let's try this. JSON example 1. Interesting. So we see the JSON being presented there. printed. It says the message is blank. It doesn't say anything about the message. And then it says the message length is 0. Interesting. So we're missing one key thing. There's one line we got to do. And if I go forward one here and come back and look at example 1, aha, this is that new line, right? What are we saying there? We're saying JSON unmarshal the JSON string. Don't worry about the fact that we had to cast it to this array of bytes. Whatever, it's just something you have to do. And then we're putting that into ampersand m. And don't worry about what the ampersand sign means. It's just something you have to do. This line we're going to use over and over in these examples. You're going to become familiar with it. And we're going to know that when we put in this magic line, and let's run the program again. Look at that. Now we're actually parsing it. Now hi, the message is hi, and the length is 2. See the difference between before we had that line and after we had that line? This line made all the difference. If I take it out, I would get the old version. If I leave it in, it's now parsing it correctly. Okay, now that's all you need to know for the absolute basics of that first example, 001, saying hi. Let's see what happens if we move on one more. Okay, so it looks like now we have an example 2. Wonderful. And do I have an example 2 file? I sure do. And so if I run this, oh, look at that, it's just printing it out. Okay, great. Now if I go forward one and I look at example 2, okay, this time we have something called a simple list. And it looks a little different than last time. Last time we had just a struct, which was a message, and had just a string. This one's a little different. This has these little brackets here. Open and close bracket string means a list of strings, means many strings. Items is an array of strings. Same thing we did before, we're just reading in this file, this time the example 2 file, printing it out, making this new simple list. And let's see what happens when we run this. It's going to say the simple list is, and it's going to say the length again. Aha. The list is empty string, the empty array, and the length is 0. And let's go forward one. Okay, we've put in the magic line. This time we're saying unmarshal. Let's see what we get. Hey, we are parsing. The length is 3. Okay, moving on. Example 3. Okay, what does this one look like? So far, we're just printing the file. Let's move forward one. A list with objects. And this time we're saying items. This time is an array of message. I need to stop this. Now, you might be confused on one little detail here. Like, we have this message, but where's our struct message? Like, the magic of Go. We are allowed to reuse what we had back in example 1, message struct. It's still there. It's just in a different file, but it's exactly the definition we need to parse our little messages that are our little list of messages, right? So let's see where we're at with example 3. Do we have the magic line there? We don't. So let's move forward one. Aha, the magic line is there. Let's see what we get. Hi, and there. It is working. We've gone, think about what we did there. Here we are printing out items in the, it's a little bit more complicated than just thing 1, thing 2. It's JSON within JSON. Okay, we're getting there. And we always have these examples to look back on when we get confused with the big, big real example, right? Let's do 4 and then on to 5. Yep. There we go. 4, objects in objects. Okay. So looks like we're trying to do some things in there with we have this extra field. Well, let's run this and see what it looks like. See why this is more complicated? Now we have an extra object and then messages inside that. Okay, forward one. We're trying to parse it here. Let's go forward one more time. Oh, I think we got it right now. Look, we have items, which is just an array of item. And what is an item? Well, it has a field named extra, and that extra is a message. Let's run that. Look at that. Hi, length is 1. Okay, on to the big one. So remember not to get intimidated. All we're trying to do is get to our YouTube title, which it looks like it's under an item like we did before. And this time there's one extra thing called snippet. Here we are printing it all out. And sure enough, items, snippet, title is what we're looking for. Length is 0 because we haven't put the magic line in yet. Let's go forward 1. The magic line is there. We're now trying to unmarshal it into a structure we've called YouTube, which has a list of items, and each item has a snippet, and a snippet has a title. And okay, what happens if we run that? Oh my God, it's working. The length is 2. The first video is this vitamin D one, and the second one is the hidden agenda of corporate elites. These are the video titles from this channel, the example channel we're using. If we look back at example 5 now, notice that this thing is uncommented here. It says unescaped string. Well, that's interesting. If you notice, there's these weird ampersand quote and ampersand number 39. That's something called HTML entities, and it's used to display stuff in HTML, but we're working in CLI, we're a command line. We're working in a command line interface. And so let's take it like this instead. So now we're saying unescape the string. What happens when we run that now? Ah, see? Vitamin D and those quotes turn into what we want, and the little ampersand turns into what we want, and now that's the text that we desire. Let's go forward one more. Oh, we are ready for thumbnails. Now, isn't that the final thing that we have to challenge here that we want to really understand, right? Because look what we've done. And this should no longer be intimidating. At the beginning of this video, you were probably very confused when I said, loop through this items and find the title. But now that should be much more clear. And then look at this, one more level down. We want to do, within a snippet, there are these things called thumbnails. And within thumbnails, there are 3 of them. There's a default, a medium, and a high. And within each one of those, this is the definition of a thumbnail, which is just a small image, and it even tells you the width and height of the image. So if we look back at example 5, what have we done? We've expanded snippet. Snippet no longer just has a title, now it has thumbnails of type thumbnail. And what's a thumbnail? Well, it's 3 thumbnails, or thumbnail not with the S. 3, this is thumbnails, this is just a thumbnail. There's the default, the medium, and the high. And each thumbnail is defined as having this URL for the actual image. And then, ooh, this is new, these are int, means integer, no longer strings, because they're not separated by quotes, they're just actual numbers. And we have a width and a height. And so what happens here with this is the stuff that's new. We're saying, okay, let's print, not print line, print, so we don't get the return there. So we're going to put an X, so it's going to be the width X height. We're saying item.snippet.thumbnails.default.width is X, then print X. And then item.snippet thumbnails default.height. Let's see what that looks like when we run it. There we go. JSON, mastered. And that is the backbone of being able to make API calls, get back JSON, parse the JSON, and then do something with that JSON. You are on your way. Thank you for attending this session of the Coding Dojo. We will see you next time.